Okay, so let's see. We are looking at our hit point monitor flippy dealy. Does that sound right? It's a technical term. All right, so let's see, where did we leave off on here? Okay, it's just yelling because we destroyed the object. Behind this. Oh yeah, the awesomeness. Okay, so what we're gonna do is uh, we're gonna look at kind of a kind of a design approach for I guess Unity game engine. I was looking at some of the solutions some of you came up with for your hit point things. I think I'm probably gonna um, recreate. I think we're gonna do something with like maybe two vertical bars. One is your maximum hit point, the other one just gets shorter and shorter and shorter, something like that. I think several people kind of went with that type of approach. But we're gonna the concept here is as our game grows, at the very least in our current state of things, we're gonna have two entities that are gonna have hit point bars, right? So it would probably make some decent sense for us to create a um, single hit point bar thing, like a prefab, design that guy with all the bells and whistles so that whenever we need a hit point bar, we just drag it in and connect it up to the right things or something like that, and we're off to the races. So let's do that type of thing. All right, so I am in my project here. And do I already have a folder for prefabs? I do. All right, we'll come back to that here in a second. So for right now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to create um, I'll create an empty game object here. And we're going to call this guy HP bar, something like that. And I'm going to drag that down here to the prefabs. And then I'm going to open that guy up. So I just drug it into prefab so we get the nice little blue thing, and I double click on that, and we should be able to design that inside of here. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and create a couple of different objects. So kind of maybe our hit point bar is going to be uh, two cubes lengthened, maybe with a certain color or something. So um, let's see, maybe it's what color should like your full life bar be? Like a bluish or something like that? And then maybe the red one goes down. Good. Okay. Sure. Yeah. So rather than having two bars, you have a kind of a backdrop color. It can still be 3D or whatever. And then you have one bar in that looks good against that backdrop and kind of shrinks. It sound reasonable? All right. So let's go ahead and let's make we'll call this guy what, the backdrop. Call that guy the backdrop. Let's go ahead and stretch him out a little bit. Is that this one? It doesn't really matter how we scale it on here because once we drop it into whatever scene we're in, we can scale it down to whatever we want. So scale it so you can work with it, and then we can fix the rest of it later. Okay, so I think you mentioned maybe green as our backdrop color. All right. Now, one thing to kind of think about here is that this is going to be a 3D object that's going to be involved in our scene at some point. So we have to kind of consider, even though in our current game we're only watching it from one side, if we want to think about it from the perspective of we change the way our game works and we have little hit point bars hovering over our guys' heads and this eventually turns into a 3D type thing and they turn a little bit. Maybe we want to still be able to see it, something like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this backdrop color fairly thin. And then we'll have the actual hit point bar maybe be a little thicker, kind of in the almost like the core of it. So it doesn't matter which side you're looking at, you can kind of still see it move. Just it's not really an important piece here, but this is what we'll do. Let me go into my materials here. Let's see what we got. So maybe we want to have a little bit brighter green for our backdrop. So I'll create a material. We'll call this guy HP bar backdrop, something like that. And let's pick there, Ninja Turtle green. All right, for that guy. We'll go back to our backdrop here and drop that dude in there. Okay, so now we want to go ahead and give our health bar, get that placed in there. I'm gonna go from the top here though, and let's make our thing skinnier. So on the Y, we'll say point one is good, I think. Actually, I did it on the wrong thing. So it's going to be X and Z is our depth. So really Y should stay there. It's Z that should be skinnier, right? Then Y we don't want it that tall, but we don't want it to be crazy. Okay, so it's 10 long, it's 1 tall, and then it's 0.2 thin, something like that. Mess with it if you want. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to copy that backdrop. And we're going to call this guy HP bar. And I'm going to put it as a child of backdrop. Why do you think I want to have game objects being children of other game objects? What's the advantage of doing that? Other than organization, let's say. Go ahead. To a certain extent, it's not so much copying the properties, but the properties of the HP bar are relative to the properties of backdrop. So if I start moving backdrop around, the HP bar drags around with it, again, relative to where it's at. So if we want to have things that are related to each other, um, might as well put them inside of each other. That way they all move together in one fell swoop and you're not moving a whole bunch of individual pieces. Realistically, once we go back over to our game after we design this piece, we're probably going to be hanging our HP bar off each of our player and our monster. There'll be a subcategory of that. That way, when our monster or our player dips in to do its attack, the HP bar goes with it, moves with that guy. We don't have to sit there and manually move every little component of the person's picture, I guess. All right, so we have this HP bar here. We'll make another material. So we'll create another material. Let's call this guy Cur Health, maybe. And we'll turn that to there, orangey. Well, actually, I already kind of have that color. Let's make it definitely a different color. Here, we'll make it red. All right. So just for a second here, I'm going to just move that guy out of the way so I have access to him to drop this in. So I'll set that health bar. I'll go ahead and we want this guy to definitely be smaller than the other guy was height-wise. So maybe it's 0.25, something like that. We probably want it to be maybe 0.5 in thickness. We want it to be wider. That way he's poking out both sides of our health bar, something like that. Then we can move him back into position here. Go from the top. Let me make him. I'm going to make him extra wide here for a second so I can see. All right, call that good enough-ish. I'm going to go ahead and set the position of my backdrop to 0, 0, 0. I'll set the position of my other guy. We'll put him at 0, 0, 0 as well. And that second 0, 0 is relative to the first guy. So our HP bar, his transform position of 0, 0, 0 is relative to where his parent, which is backdrop, is located. All right, so flip through there. We can say that looks like an amazing health bar, looking pretty solid. Um, Maybe you can make the argument that it doesn't quite need to be that tall, but whatever. All right, so now we want this thing to do stuff. All right. And potentially and we want it to do different things depending on who it's attached to. All right. So we have a couple different approaches to this. Um, we can have this game object get attached to our player or get attached to our monster, maybe through some sort of mono behavior or something like that, where we make this a public thing and then we decide, okay, well, I need to adjust this guy, and so instead of the length being here, it's now this length, whatever. Or we can have our health bars uh, plug into the thing that's managing what should the current health bar be. So this guy might have his own mono behavior. So let's start with that. Maybe think about it in terms of our singleton where, a health bar comes into existence and he knows I am tracking the monster's health, or he knows I am tracking the player's health. And he has some place to go to get the current percent of health that's there so he can adjust his stuff. We might also find it beneficial here if we set the size of this guy to maybe be 100. And even though that stretches it way out for us, if we know its scale is 100 and we operate on how big should the HP bar be relative to a percent of hit points left, we can more easily do the scale based on that percentage. All right. So we see that our scale on our HP bar is a 1, but since it is inside the backdrop, it's stretched all the way out. So actually, if we move that to like a 0.5, we see that it squeezed down to be a little bit smaller. Here, this is gonna be difficult to view if I keep it the other way. Oh, ninja. Get my scene back. No, I've lost it. This guy? Get back to the other scene. Control Z, I think, is going to start deleting stuff from this scene. So probably something with window or view panels. We're going to have to closing the application, just reopening it, hoping it gives us a better thing. Definitely not that. All right. Default. All right. I don't know what I did, but we're back there. So let me go back to my prefabs. Let me go to my HP bar. Oh, I did hit Control Z. So can we do redo here? All right. Let's say that looks decent. And I'll actually make my hit point bar maybe point 0.7. That looks decent. All right. So as we look at this HP bar and if we make it smaller, so like 0.25, like 25% of your hit points or something like that, we see that it's squeezing into the middle. Is that what we want? Or do we want it to have a fixed point over here on the side and then it starts going down from there? Uh, I'm guessing that's what we want. Oop, one. All right. So if that's the case, and I'm changing X to squeeze it down, how do I then also get it positioned correctly so that I see it going the way it should be going? So on the X, if I go to 50% and I go to 0.5, 50% of the color has disappeared, but I want it to now be positioned at negative 0.25, right? So as I'm changing the scale of this part of it, I also need to change its position relative to half of the percentage, the adjustment I've made to the scale. So it looks right to us. And since this is going to be happening every single frame, we probably are not going to notice. It's not going to be jumping around on us, something like that. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to go ahead and get a mono behavior attached to this guy so we can have something that is controlling these various pieces. Question?
Yeah, so
Go ahead.
will this health bar then be like applied to the player and the monster?
As well as anything else in our game we want to put health bars on.
Okay.
So this is a self-contained health bar that we just have to tell it, where do you go to get your number? And then we can attach it to whatever we want and just tell it, where does your number come from? We'll figure out what we need, where the numbers will come from later. We just want to make sure that we can give it a number. All right. And for testing, we'll probably just do some sort of countdown to practice with time delta time, where maybe every second we have 95% health, 90% health, kind of see the guy in action. All right, so let's put this back. I'll move it back to 100%. Let's do it now. I'll forget. All right, so there's our whole health bar. We have our top level game object here. It really doesn't matter if we put our mono behavior on that or we put it on the backdrop or even on the HP bar, because from our perspective, the only thing that's really changing is the HP bar. Is that an accurate statement? Just the HP bar is the only piece that's changing. So let's go ahead and create my mono behavior for this guy. So I'll go into scripts and we'll call this guy, let's call it HP bar controller, something like that. All right. Now, if I put this HP bar controller on the HP bar game object, this top level one, and I want him to have access to this HP bar, how would I do that? So he's on the empty game object up here, which contains our backdrop, which contains our HP bar. If I put it on the empty game object here, how do I give him access to this HP bar? I'll go ahead and open up the HP bar controller. Go ahead.
Don't you like put at the top game object HP bar?
Okay, so we need to expose that to it so we can drag it in. So I can say public game object HP bar. Now, if I go back out to my code here, then I see it's now expecting me to pass in an HP bar. I can go ahead and give it to that guy there. Okay. Is that the best way to do this? That's all the script has in it, is this one thing here. So by me putting that mono behavior on the top level empty game object, I now have to tell it about the HP bar. If this particular prefab, if the only thing that ever moves on this is the HP bar, we really actually don't need to have it on anything but the HP bar. Everything else is purely visual, right? So we can actually take this script away from here. So we'll remove the component from our HP bar. I'm going to go back into the script here and let's dump this. So we no longer have to expose that. And then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and take our HP bar controller and put it just on the actual red bar. So by doing that, do we still need to let the mono behavior know about this game object that we want to change? Because we're going to want to change the scale of HP bar, right? That's the guy we're going to be changing. Do I need to let my script know about that HP bar? Why not? He already knows about it. This is the game object that owns that script. So we don't need to pass it in. It's like, look, whoever owns me, I'm going to be adjusting his size. That's what this thing's going to do. So let's go back in here. All right, so we'll even put a little comment up here just to remind us in case we come back to this thing later. And we'll say that this dot game object is the game object associated with the red HP bar. All right. So just to kind of see this thing start, when an HP bar first comes into existence, we already have it at 100%, or at the scale of this guy is 1. All right. So what we can do is we can go ahead and we don't need to change its default, but inside of update for right now, let's go ahead and have it move down, get smaller and smaller and smaller, and just see it moving, see it changing. We probably want to have this not happen too quickly. That way we actually experience it changing. So let me go back here. So we're going to have to remember how much time has passed since the last time we've done something. So we'll say private float I don't know, time change. I guess we could just call it delta time. We'll start that off at 0.0. All right, so then inside of here, we want to keep adding on to our time change. And then maybe every half second, we can adjust our health bar, a skosh, maybe a percent at a time. So we'll go ahead and we'll say this dot time change plus equals delta time, then ask a question if this dot time change is greater than or equal to 0.5, must be listening to me. We'll reset it. Here's our HP percent. I'm not gonna use that stuff for right now. Let's just get rid of that. So we'll reset our time change because we want to be prepared for the next half second. And then we want to go ahead and make our adjustment to our health bar. Now, eventually, we're going to be connecting this to the actual number of hit points they have. But for right now, we just want to see, is it behaving the way we want it to behave? So why don't we drop it by 1% every half second? Something like that. Now, since the scale, so the thing we're going to be adjusting here on the game object that owns this script is we're going to be adjusting its scale on X. All right, so its scale on X is 1. So we want it to go from 1 to 0.99 to 0.98 to 0.97, so on and so forth. All right, how might we do that? or what's a good way of doing that as opposed to how we might be able to accomplish it. Recently, we've talked about doing math with vector threes, right? So how much do we want to change our hit point bar scale every half second? We want to change it by we subtract by 0.05, or I'm sorry, 0.01 on the X. So minus 0.01 on the X. We do not want to change the Y. We do not want to change the Z. All right. So each time we're going to be subtracting a change from it. So let's go ahead. Good.
So is it similar to the mini map stuff that we did, like where instead of like moving it up and down, like you just be moving left and right then?
I don't recall if we used vector 3 math for the mini map. If we did, then yes. The answer is yes. And I think it'll be pretty clear here in a second. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to kind of hard code this, but we're going to say we want to create a vector 3, call it scale change, and we'll go ahead and I'll let it put the whole thing in there so I don't have to type too much. But what we want to do is we want this guy to be a 0.01. That's how much we're going to change. We want it to go from a 1 to a 0.99 to a 0.98, so on and so forth. So this is the amount that is going to change every half second. So then what we can do is we can say this dot. You actually don't have to say this dot game object. You can just say this dot transform. It's a little bit of kind of a hack that Unity does. They let you bypass the game object by referring to this. This is an instance of this mono behavior. But realistically, when you're talking about this, you're talking about the game object this mono behavior is hanging off of. So when we say this dot transform, it knows you mean this dot game object dot transform. I tend to like to be more explicit. So I'm going to say the game object that this script is attached to, it's the loading dock right below us. Game object that this thing is attached to, dot scale, minus equals scale change. Let's see, is scale not the name of it? Saw it put in there local scale, but does it oh, the accesses it through local scale. So dot local scale minus equals the amount we want the scale to change, which is 0.01. So we're subtracting 0.01 on the X. We're subtracting 0 on the Y, subtracting 0 on the Z. All right. So we're just going to keep nudging it in that little direction. Go ahead and save this guy. Now, let me check something here. I'm not sure if it lets me actually test a prefab or if we'll have to put it to the other scene, but yeah, we have to put it in the other scene. All right, so right now we're just looking at our prefab. I want to go back to our scene that we're messing with here, which is our fight scene. I'll go ahead and save our prefab since I've made some changes to it. And let's go ahead and drag our, here, I'm gonna, actually I already have him on the scene because we drug him into as a prefab, but if he wasn't there, we'd go into our prefabs and just drag this guy back out of the scene. He's already there. Let me just move him up a little bit so we can see him. All right. And for right now, I'm gonna disable our player and our monster. That way they're not dancing around on the screen distracting us. All right, we see our hit point bar going down every half second. So we're getting beat up. Okay. So now, as we mentioned, we also want it to slide over in its position, right? Okay, so how much do we need it to slide to the left every half second? Go ahead. half of what we're scaling it by, or half of what we're changing its scale by, right? Good. There probably is. There probably is. I'm sure it is. I mean, so at that point, we're kind of operating off of what things have I done with Unity. So there are probably better ways of doing this, but we're going to do the mathy way because that's what I could figure out to do. But what you're saying makes tons of sense. Yeah, go ahead.
Did you drag that into the HP bar or the backdrop?
Are you talking about the prefab? I had the HP bar. I just made it a child of the backdrop. It actually doesn't matter for the functionality of this, but if I decided to move my backdrop, so right now I have the backdrop, if I move this guy, the HP bar moves with him because he's a subcomponent of it. If he wasn't a subcomponent of it and I move my backdrop, the HP bar stays behind. So if I want this whole thing to kind of move around as a unit, if I were to move it around, got to keep them together. Although as a prefab, it actually wouldn't make a difference because I'd be moving the entire prefab. So kind of naturally it connects together, but this would probably be good practice to keep them all hooked together like this. Just so since you're not always working with prefabs, you sometimes would be working with something you just created on the screen. All right, so let's go and here, I'm just gonna adjust, even though it doesn't matter. Just put it back to 0, 0 here. Okay, so not only as we're adjusting its scale down this way, we also need to move it on its position on X by half of the amount we just changed it. So if we say private, and we're hard coding this stuff at this point, but if we say private vector3, let's call this left move, is equal to a new vector3. And I actually think, let me test something here. Can I say scale change? Because we are changing it on the X. This is called this dot scale change. This dot scale change divided by 2. 0.0. Oh, it's not available there. That's fine. I'll here it should be. This dot left move is equal to this dot scale change. Okay, yeah, you can't divide with vector3s. It lets you add and subtract. I thought maybe they would give us a cool Oh, so what it was complaining about is it won't let you do it to something at the double. Oh, yeah, vector3 and double by saying this is a 2.0 F. Now it's a float. Let's see if it gives us the behavior we want, but this should be right because when we take this back to normal math, now we're thinking about, well, we're doing some dividing by 0, but hopefully Unity is fixing this for us behind the scenes, or we're about to create a black hole.
Does it need to be started?
The who what?
Does it need to be started?
I think it does because the what it was complaining about up above was this keyword. Complaining about that. Although I could just leave this keyword off and it would know based on scope what I'm talking about. Although it doesn't actually seem to. Go ahead.
The HP bar whenever HP goes down.
The position of it. So it's going to be. We're going to be making that update. We just need to have it initially linked for the size. So I can hard code it here. I was just trying to do a mathy trick. So we can do this here. So if we just want to keep it simple, we can just do that. And 0.01 divided by 2 is 0.005. So that's the amount. We'll nudge it to the left rather than do the divide stuff or whatever. So every half second will drop by a percent. We'll also move enough to the left that it always looks like it's left justified is the idea here. All right, so we'll change our scale. Then we'll also say this dot game object dot position minus equals the left move. We'll also nudge it over a little bit when we change that scale. I'll go ahead and save that. Back over to here. I think that it's already going to run our fight scene, which we already put it in. It's not. It's not moving. Actually, is it just not moving enough? Well, right, but this should stay left justified. Good.
Like this earlier, you saying like nested prefabs. I think you'd have to move the single position and not use it.
Just like we had to do for the scale. So we have a local position on this, which is going to be his position relative to his parent, as opposed to before we were doing it relative to the scene. I think that's what it was trying to do, is relative to the scene. But local position will be relative to his parent, and we know his parent is this other person. It was interesting that there wasn't a normal scale. There was just local scale for messing with. I don't know the reason for that. Okay. So now this guy seems to be going down or chopping down the tree. This guy's getting hit 1% at a time. Okay. So now that we have this guy working, rather than hard coding in the amount that it should move each time, to always be 1% and things like that, we probably want it to be mathematically sound based on where it's going to be moving. So if we bring this prefab back in just so we can kind of imagine it, I'm going to go back to my scene here. We're going to pause from making any updates to that. Actually, I think this prefab currently works the way we want it to work. We just need to update the script to move it based on a real value, not a hard-coded thing. Go back to our fight scene, make sure I save everything. Let's go ahead and turn our player and our monster back on. All right. And then we can go ahead and position our HP bar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have an HP bar and I'm going to have it relative to the monster. I'll position him over the monster here. Change his scale. Right, then we'll do a second HP bar and do this one relative to the player. Drag that guy over there by the player. All right, we go ahead and run this. Actually, click the run button. They are going down, but maybe for the sake of sanity, we should make those guys stop dancing. So let's where was that? The fight scene manager?
The animation like, or at least like when.
Oh, you definitely can make it a lot of other things that are way better than what we're doing. Okay, so what I'm going to do for right now is we're just going to stop moving combatants. So I just commented out that whole move them around block. So we'll have a little bit more sanity in this whole thing. Remember, our player was moving from before. I'm only stopping our monster here. So actually, since we're gonna make this better anyways, why don't I just this was the move the combatants. We'll do that better anyways in the future. Yeah, let me finish up this thought, but thank you. I was thinking about it, but I want to just make sure we leave ourselves at a decent stopping point. Okay. So what's still making this dude move? Well, our player is something else is making him move other than that. So this was our fight scene manager. It's an update. Ah, here's the making him move. Okay. So that looks better. We do see that we have our health bars that are kind of positioned a little funky relative to those guys, so we can get those repositioned. So what we'll do next time is we want to get these the mono behaviors associated with these health bars connected to the actual health of the associated either monster or player so that we actually can see a real thing. And then we'll get them positioned nicer too. All right. I will update the code. I'll just do another push just so you have the script that we wrote today, even though there's not a ton of stuff going on in there, just 2 vector 3s and some math. No homework for Friday. So I will see everybody then. Sorry for canceling, ending class a little early, but maybe it balances out for the times I went long early in the semester.